Here we're going to talk about how to make a law school study routine, and now we're on part 2, which is preparing goals every single week. So basically what we just talked about is figuring out when and where you'll be studying. Now we're going to talk about what you'll be doing every week. And this is just as important as the last step, because if you just sit down and you say, I'm going to study, you probably won't be automatically prioritizing and maximizing your efficiency. Instead, you might be studying really hard, but not really studying productively. You don't have a plan in place from the beginning. So what's great in law school is you can set aside time every single week, which I highly recommend, to figure out what you're going to be doing the following week. So I used to do this on Saturdays because Sunday was my break day. So Saturday, right before I took my break day, I would figure out what I was going to do the following week. And basically what I would do is make a weekly list of things to do, and then I would divide it into a daily list of things to do. So I knew not only what I was going to do the next week, but literally what I was going to do every single day. Now, some people find that too burdensome. They'd rather just have a weekly list of things to do and work off of that weekly list, which is fine too. Either approach works, either will be successful. Just do what works best for you, and you might kind of change it as you go along. But basically, when you sit down every week, there's a few things that you want to do. And the first thing that you want to do is make sure you're prioritizing. And I would recommend making sure you're prioritizing the types of things that are going to lead to a high grade on the final exam, and feeling less stressed out and more in control of the material throughout the semester. Okay, and these things are outlining, learning your outlines, and practicing answering exam questions. All right? These 3 things should be a priority every week. So let's go through them one by one. Creating your outlines. I would recommend that you focus on your class notes, and that every day within 24 hours of your class, you add to your outline. So within 24 hours of taking all your class notes on the computer, then take those notes, condense them, delete them, organize them into your outline. So you'll literally be doing this on a very regular basis. And by the end of the semester, when some students are scrambling to start their outlines, you'll already be done with yours, okay? So it's a great thing to get into the habit of doing, and it'll help you remember lecture. Some studies show that if you just listen to a lecture and you don't review it shortly after, you'll retain about 1% of that lecture later. But if you review it shortly after, like within 24 hours, you'll retain significantly more of that lecture. So that's why we recommend that you start creating your outlines shortly after class. And this will take 30 minutes to an hour on average every day. Sometimes it'll take less, and sometimes it'll take longer. And this will only be on the days that you have class. So if you don't have class on Fridays, for example, then you probably won't be adding to your outlines because you have already done it Monday through Thursday. Okay, next, reviewing your outlines. So actually go take the time to go back and see if you know the elements. Cover up the elements in your outline and say, okay, can I list the elements of battery? Can I list the elements of assault? And go through them and see if you know them. This will help you in multiple ways. First of all, it'll help you for the exam. You'll be studying for it all throughout the semester. Second of all, you won't feel so lost in class. You'll feel more prepared because you'll understand how these new cases fit in with other concepts that you've already learned. You'll be able to answer some tricky hypotheticals if you're on call and your professor is addressing something that was learned in a previous class. So I highly recommend that you do this every single week. Reviewing your outlines should take about 30 minutes to an hour a day, depending on the extent of your review and how well you already know the material. So that's going to be a little bit variable. 3, practice answering exam questions. Now, in the very beginning of the semester, you're not going to sit down and do a full-length practice exam. I promise if you do, you will freak yourself out because you're not going to know what to write. But we recommend you start by doing some problems from examples and explanations or other short, abbreviated practice problems throughout the semester. So for example, if you're learning contract formation and contracts, you can do some isolated problems on contract formation, on offer, acceptance, consideration, and that'll help ensure that you're able to apply those concepts that you're learning to different hypotheticals. That'll help you really learn the law and kind of like internalize it more, because not only do you have the elements memorized, but you're also making sure that you understand how to apply them. As the semester goes on, you can start doing more practice exams. So for example, maybe halfway through the semester, you'll be equipped to do the first problem on your professor's exam. And then closer to the end of the semester, you'll be able to do more exams. So this will be a little bit variable. In the beginning of the semester, you'll spend less time practicing applying the law because you'll know less law. But as the semester goes on, you'll spend more time practicing applying the law because you'll have more law to apply and more law to work with. Okay, so we just talked about activities that you should prioritize throughout the semester. And these would be the first things on your weekly to-do list, okay, because they're so important to do every week. But you still want to also prepare for class, complete legal writing and research assignments, prepare to be on call some weeks. These are also very important to include in your schedule. They'll help you a little less on the final exam, but they're still high priority. You still have to do them every week. So I would recommend that you include time to read cases and consult commercial briefs, and you have to do this every week that you have class. I recommend that you do it the night before class or the morning of class so that it's fresh in your mind by the time you have class, and the estimated time per day is about an hour. Now this will depend on your professor and your classes. Some professors really don't focus a ton on cases and they'll focus more on hypotheticals or other things, and they won't care very much about the facts of the cases. Other professors will really care about the facts of the cases. They might assign only 10 pages of reading a night versus another one will assign 100 pages of reading a night. So it's going to depend a little bit on your professor and your classes, and you'll get a good feel for how this is going throughout the semester. But I would recommend you set aside about an hour a day to just focus on reading cases and case briefs, and briefing cases if necessary. Next, complete legal writing homework assignments and research projects. This does not have to be overwhelming. What happens in law school is a lot of people put legal writing and research off to the last minute, and then they have a brief due, and then they stay up all night and they work on their brief and they don't get a very good grade because they've done it in such a condensed period of time. Instead, I would allocate time literally every day, or at least every week, to work on your legal writing research assignments. So work backwards. If you know you have a brief due, figure out, okay, brief is due week 4. So week 4, I just want to, I want to be done with it, or I just want to do a final proof. Week 3, I want to make sure it's completely written. Week 2, I want to complete all the research. Basically, work backwards and figure out what you have to do every week to get your legal writing research brief completed on time. I never pulled an all-nighter in law school. I never felt stressed out about legal writing and research because I'd already done the work ahead of time. I did it each week rather than putting it off to the last minute. And this is also helpful because if you have questions for your professor or if you need additional help, you can take that time to ask your professor your questions or get that additional help. Last, prepare to be on call some weeks. If you know you'll be on call, or if you have a feeling you'll be on call, or if you're just scared that you'll be on call, then you might want to prepare a little more closely for class and focus on the types of questions that your professor might ask you if you are on call. So just put it right into your schedule so that you don't feel nervous and anxious throughout the entire class. The next tip is to be as specific as possible when you're planning your weekly schedule. That's the best way to be focused and productive, because rather than just sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to study, if you do that, you'll probably not be productive, okay? Because you don't know what you're studying or why you're studying it. Instead, if you make a list of things to do every week or every day, then you'll sit down and you know exactly what you need to do. You can dive right in and be very productive that day. An example of a daily to-do list, I have an example of a random Monday daily to-do list. And here the total study time is 4 hours. So the person is reading for torts and contracts. That day, that's an hour. They're adding to their torts outline and reviewing the torts outline. That's another hour. They're adding to their contracts outline and reviewing their contracts outline. That's another hour total. And then they're doing some torts and contracts questions in the examples and explanations book. That's a half hour. And they're preparing their legal writing assignment. They're making a research plan for their brief. That's 30 minutes. So this person kind of put a little bit of everything into their schedule. They're reading for that day's classes so it's fresh in their mind. They're adding to their outline right after their lectures and they're reviewing that so that it's something that they can keep in their memory. And then they're also applying the law just briefly for a short period of time and then preparing their legal writing assignment so that they're not pulling all-nighters the night before it's due. So that's an example of a daily to-do list. And again, if you set aside time every single week in your schedule to just plan out the week ahead This will not only make you more productive and efficient, but it'll also keep you motivated, and it'll help you avoid burnout and stress to the extent that it's possible throughout the semester.